the first question was, what can we do about this? And I really didn't have any idea. I said, look, this is for very poor children in a very peculiar circumstance who don't know anything, very poor, etc. They don't really know of what use it can be in your society. But they felt, the education department felt, that there was a learning mechanism which could be of interest not just for disadvantaged children but for all children. So I got around to doing the same experiment. You can't do that same experiment in England. The weather is awful, so you can't put a computer outdoors. So I thought, well, what can I do about that? So I turned the hole in the wall experiment inside out. Easy enough to do, and that's something that you can actually do in any school. It's really very simple. What you do is you take a classroom and you sort of empty out or spread out the furniture a bit. Take a few computers, say 3 or 4. If you have, say 20 children, take 5. I use the ratio of 1:4. Why do I do that? Because remember, the original hole in the wall was out in the open and there was only one computer. There were hundreds of children sharing it, but still the results showed that all 100 of them were benefiting. So there was something about groups which was very key to this whole thing. So in England I tried the ratio of 1:4. And there's a reason for 1:4 also. When you do an experiment like this in a village, on the first day you get hundreds and hundreds of children, nothing much happens. Because everybody's pushing each other and trying to get to the computer, etc. After about a week, things start to settle down. And because there is no supervision, the children basically invent administration and management. Because they realize they're getting nowhere otherwise. It's very beautiful to watch because there is really little. But they figure out timings, who should go when. In some places when girls should go, in some places when boys should go. In one village they had a group of children who were too short to reach the computer. So they figured out a time slot during which the taller children will come there and hold and lift them up so that they can access the computer. All this they did by themselves. So you need the groups. And it looked almost as though, a very counterintuitive result, it looked as though the lack of resources was acting as an accelerator for learning. So, very different from today's thinking where you say, I'll give every child a computer. But that may not be the best thing to do. Anyway, so in England, in the local, I live in a city, Newcastle is sort of very close to Edinburgh. If you think of England, it goes straight up from London towards Scotland, then Newcastle's just before the Scottish border. And it's on this river called Tyne. And across the river is a city called Gateshead. So I lived there. So in the schools of Gateshead, I started this experiment. Northeast England, where Gateshead is a relatively poorer part of the country. Their kind of poverty is different from our kind in some ways, but also very similar in some ways. So it's all got to do with nutrition, alcoholism, lack of work, that sort of thing. So in that disadvantaged area, the statistics which first caught my eye was that the school results were poorer than the rest of England. So you may have seen this everywhere in this country. It's almost as though the data is trying to tell you that the children of poor people are stupid. But that can't be true. Then what explains these results? Well, you could say the teachers in those areas are no good. But there have been experiments which show that that's also not the case. So why is it that in disadvantaged areas, school results are poorer than other places? There are many interesting pieces of work today which points to an answer which you will not find something that you've thought about. Because the first thought that will come into your head would be teaching, learning and parenting. But this must be what is causing the change. But there is work from 1990s, I think mid-1990s, which brought a very peculiar slant on this whole thing. The correlation between the kind of child your little fellow becomes seemed to have a 50% correlation with genes. Now that's very politically incorrect, right? But there it was, the data. So 50% of what he becomes seemed to be genetic. You can't help that. The other 50, everybody said other 50 is school and parents. There was study after study after study which showed that this doesn't seem to be the case. The child doesn't necessarily take on the personality of the parent. The child doesn't necessarily take on the behaviorism of the school. So what does shape the child? It's not known yet, okay? It's one of those puzzles in psychology right now. But there is an intriguing clue that the balance 50% of the child depends on a very peculiar factor. The child's social status around the age of 16. Okay? Not before, not after, around that mid-teen years. So shapes about 50% of the behavior in later life. I thought it would be fascinating for teachers to know this because, here's something that you can affect, the child's self-image. And if you think back at your school days, there were those guys who were the heroes among the 16-year-olds, the tall football-playing variety. Then there were the nerds, the guys with the specs, and they were very good at math and this and that. And then there were the ones who everybody used to make fun of. But if you go back, you'll find all three of them grew up in three different ways and have three different kinds of personalities. The data seems to say that that's what affects it. But anyway, so here I was working with these English kids at ages of 9, 10, 11, like that. Take 20 children, put 5 computers, give them a question, something interesting. Maybe a question like, okay, in America I tried this quite recently. I asked them, did anybody have a dream last night? So naturally lots of hands went up. So okay, what did you have a dream about? I asked to somebody. And she says, oh, it was a very funny dream. You see, it was a dream about my dog. But it wasn't really my dog, it was my neighbor's dog, but in the dream it was my dog. You know how dreams are. So this is what. So then I said, by then everybody's getting interested. So then I said, well, why does this funny thing happen? I mean, you're sleeping, and why is it that this story starts, where does this story come from? So you do that, they have the internet, and then you leave them alone. You have to say, I don't know the answer. And for an example like this, that's not difficult to say, right? You can say quite confidently, I don't know the answer. I have some idea, but I don't really know. Children find that very interesting, that the teacher is standing in front of them and saying, it's an interesting question, but I don't have the answer. Will you try? And then you leave them alone for about 30-40 minutes. Don't tell them anything. In England, they used to ask me, but there are only 5 computers. So I would say, well, that's all I've got. So then they would say, well, we think we have to make groups. So I would say, well, maybe if you think so. And then they would say, but who is going to decide what to search for? And I would say, I have no idea. And then they would say, maybe we should take turns. I would say, well, if you think so, you get the idea. So you're totally passive. They're in control, and then you come back. So in this particular case in America, the children came back, the subconscious mind, it produces, some said it's the day's memories packaged into a different kind of a story, or it's a memory from the past, and that's getting converted and transformed into another kind of language. And then my time was getting over, luckily, because the last one was one little girl again, who said, I have discovered that there was a man in Austria. His name was Sigmund Freud. And I said, we're out of time. Okay, this is it. Let's just relax. So that's how, these are called self-organized learning environments, and this is more or less how they go. So, I'm not sure if the movie clips are going to work, but let's see. Self-organized learning environments. So basically, what you're trying to do there is to create a mildly chaotic condition. Why? Because you're not telling them anything.